So I'll try and work with it. So my name is Sean Hurley. I'm the co-secretary with the Crown Point Community Planning Team. And we organized this in cooperation with the Stinson Community Neighborhood Association, as well as the Keith Neighborhood and Gala Neighborhood. So it's sort of like a Ward 3 debate. We decided to bring this together because there wasn't one. And we thought it would be a good idea that if we can get the candidates together for an exchange of ideas, given that there's no incumbent in this ward and given that there's so many important issues to be discussed. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I just want to thank you all for coming. Our moderator for tonight is Linda Lukasik of Environment Hamilton, and she'll explain the rules, and then we'll get going. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Welcome, everyone. So I'm here tonight to be moderator, and I want to acknowledge I've got Aaron Shacklett sitting beside me, and between the two of us, we're going to make sure that we run this conversation as smoothly as possible. So I just want to give everyone a sense of how we're going to be approaching this tonight. And I should start, too, just by saying we had 3 candidates who sent their regrets for tonight. Tony Lemma, Amanda Salonen, and Ned Couric, who they unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. They had family emergency, other commitments. But we do have a fair number of candidates here tonight, and you'll have an opportunity to meet each of them and hear a little bit more in a moment. So tonight's debate is informal, but it will be moderated. This is a neat venue for a community debate. Because there are so many candidates, and we wish to allow everyone a fair opportunity, the debate format is going to be conversational. So we're going to start tonight with each candidate taking 1 minute just to introduce themselves and provide an opening statement for you. Then we're going to move into 5 key question areas, and we'll spend 20 minutes in each question area. And the topics that we're covering tonight include housing, road safety, the LRT, HSR, and small business. And so for that portion of the debate, each straws will be drawn to determine which candidate will provide the initial response to each question. And then from there, the discussion will be opened up to all of the candidates. So we'll be generating a speakers list, and candidates, when they speak, will have 1 minute to speak, and we'll go through everyone. And if there's no one who wants to speak from the first round of speakers, there'll be an opportunity for second speakers, and we'll do that until the 20 minutes is up, and then we'll move on to the next question. And I should ask quickly, have the straw drawing, is that going to happen with each question? How are we dealing with that piece? Oh, did you? Okay. Okay, then. How do we, on the fly, how do we want to deal with that? Maybe? Sure, why don't we do that? That sounds great. Okay, so maybe I'll get my trusty timekeeper. Oh, Carl's going to do that. Okay, so we've got some time, Carl, before we need that. So I think we'll start then, and maybe just to shake things up a bit, we'll go in reverse alphabetical order. And we'll start with your 1 minute statements. And we're not being rude at the front here, but we are going to be strict with the time. So 1 minute for your opening statements, and we will yell time when your minute is up and move on to the next candidate. So I'm just going to get settled, and we'll tell you when to start.
So you say you want to go in reverse alphabetical order?
Reverse alphabetical, so we'll go this way.
Okay, and the first one again, Mike.
You all set? Yeah, I can do that on this one. Okay. All right. And Christine Sprague. Go ahead, Christine.
Hello, everybody. I'm Christine Sprague. I'm your candidate for Ward 3. I'm going to tell you that what I am a part of, I'm part of Acorn Canada. What I do is I help people are dealing with tenant rights issues. I help people if they're dealing with landlords not paying attention to the rights. Like, for example, if you have a bad floor or a wall, I would go there to inspect, and I would get the slammy landlords gone and make sure that they get their job. Get their jobs done properly. What I would, if I'm elected as your city councillor, I would make sure that the landlords are responsible for their actions and make sure that they're accountable for every one of you, because you guys are important. That's why on my slogan it says we as councillors need to start listening to you guys, because if we don't start listening to you, we are going to lose voters in this ward,
and time.
we do not.
Thank you, Christine. And Dan Smith.
Yeah, hi, my name is Dan Smith. I've lived in the ward since 2005, 13 years, Hamilton since 1985. As my community involvement, most recently I've been raising my children, so a lot of my community involvement has been volunteering at my kids' schools for field trips, education days. I have a background in science, so there was a science day at the school. I went and helped out on that. I've been involved in several political campaigns in this ward before. I was past treasurer of Hamilton Centre NDP NDP Riding Association. I helped out on numerous campaigns, but that aside, I guess one of my greatest endeavors wasn't quite in this ward, was downtown. In 2002, I was part of this organization. We helped form this organization called Sky Dragon, which is aimed at community development. It's 13 years, well, we formed it in 2002. We got our building in 2005. It was aimed at downtown revitalization. We published a newspaper.
Time.
No.
Sorry. Sorry. Okay, Steve Rowe.
Hi, folks. For the few of you that I don't know, my name is Stephen Rowe. All of my life, I've lived in Hamilton. For the last 30 years, I've lived in Ward 3. For the last 25 years, I've lived in the Keith neighborhood, which is the most northern neighborhood in the ward. North of the CN tracks, runs from Wellington to Sherman. For the past 20 years, I've been involved on the ground level there in my community. For the last 10 years, I've been with the Keith Neighborhood Hub, and the last 5 of that, I've been chair of the hub. Prior to my time at the Keith Neighborhood Hub, I was a founding board member of the Eva Rothwell Center, which is a privately owned community center that's brought resources to my underserved neighborhood. So I definitely know what it means not to get the support from the city, so I want to make sure that every neighborhood does get that support that they need. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy yourself tonight, and I hope you learned something new.
Time.
Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Nan Durnan.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nan Durnan. I've lived in the Sherman Hub proudly for the last 8 years, raising my family and taking care of my mother-in-law into her last days of life. I've owned a small business and operated out of the Kitchen Collective, and where I've been providing pay what you can nutritional support so that people can use food as a way of healing their bodies and their diseases. I've also spent the early years of the Sherman Hub when I got here meeting as a resident at the multi-stakeholder table there, and learned so much about my neighborhood and contributed to some solutions there. I've also had the privilege of doing some resident leadership development support, so helping residents who have solutions navigate different levels of bureaucracy in order to have those solutions implemented in terms of taking care of our air quality and keeping our industrial neighbors accountable. I've also had the privilege and honor of championing a lot of equity and women's-based issues across the city, and had the honor and privilege of serving as the founding board member for the Mustard Seed Co-op, and most recently, as a result of that, supported cooperatives here.
Thank you, Nwinder. Sorry. Steve Deneau.
Hello, I'm Stephen Paul Denault. I'm running for Ward 3 councillor. Some of my issues I'm presently dealing with are LRT. I'm totally against it. I think we can use other alternatives. I think it's going to cause problems in regards to roads and services, and the secondary roads are going to be quite filled with traffic, which is going to cause congestion through the city. I'm also looking at affordable housing. It's a big issue, I think, in Hamilton. We have a lot of millennials living in Hamilton. There's like 150,000 of them, and they need to have an opportunity to purchase a home of some sort, and that's probably most of my mandate. Reducing taxes, I think, is a very important aspect too in the future. As far as Hamilton, our assessments are being increased because of the tax values, and I think we should look at that. That's an important issue, and that's it.
Thank you, Steve. Laura Farr.
Hi, my name is Laura Farr. I live here in the Gibson-Lansdale neighborhood, where I have been the publisher and editor of the Gala Herald for the last 5 years, with many other community people that are actually in the room, which is great to see. So happy all of you came out to join us tonight. A little bit about me. I grew up in Ward 3 until my parents divorced, and then we moved to the mountain with my mom. And I came back when I bought my house about 7 years ago. I've been involved in the community, and I've also been someone that works at City Hall. So I've been at City Hall proper for 10 years, but I've been an employee for 18. I started in recreation at Pinky Lewis Recreation Center. From there, I moved, again, 10 years ago, working for first Councillor Morelli and then many of our other councillors in the last 3.5 years in the mayor's office, answering all of your calls, tags, tweets, emails, everything, trying to help people. And that's pretty much who I am. I want to help people and respect the taxpayer dollar, because as people yell at me on the phone, your taxes, my taxes pay your salary. They do, and we need to respect that.
Thank you, Laura. Alain Bureau.
Yes, good evening. My name is Alain Bureau. Merci, bienvenue. Mon nom est Alain Bureau. I have been extensively involved in the community for the last 5 years with over 30 organizations and initiatives. I've delegated numerous times at council on issues such as transit, the environment, housing, business improvement. I've also, my experience here has even brought me to Queen's Park, where I deposited with other residents a petition to repeal the vacant property tax. So my activities have been very broad within many spheres that include healthy and safe communities and growth and prosperity. I've also been extensively engaged in the process of participation as a resident within a variety of groups. My background is law, finance, and healthcare. I'm grassroots. I'm not politically aligned. I live in Ward 3. I call it my home, the place I work, and the place I live.
Thank you, Ellen. Milena Balta.
Hi, my name is Milena Balta, and I came to Hamilton in 1969. I opened my business in Ward 3 in 1986. I've been in the community. I'm a Rotarian for 20 years. We've done breakfast programs, City Kids. We are really in Ward 3 supportive. The old Parkview High School, we finance a lot of kids to go in and do welding courses at Mohawk College, so I have extensive support in the community. I've seen people, when I'm working late at night, I've seen a girl kicked out of the house in January, where I got her in my car and drove her to the corner of Wilson and Houston for the kids. I help kids out, I help people out. And I have seen decline of this ward over the years, and I want to make a positive change. That's why I'm running for councilor this year.
Time. Thank you, Melina. All right, so we're going to move on to the first question, and we've drawn the name of the person who will begin, and Milena Balta, you'll be the first respondent. And first I'm going to read the question, and just remind everyone, so Milena will start with a 1-minute response, and then anyone else who would like to respond between Aaron and I will start a speakers list and make sure that everybody has an opportunity. So here's the question. The majority of candidates have mentioned affordable housing as being a key priority in this election. What is the best approach to bringing affordable housing to Ward 3? For example, Section 37 of the Planning Act allows for council to negotiate community benefits in exchange for higher density buildings. Should that be used to leverage more affordable housing from developers? And Milena, we'll start with you. 1 minute, please.
Well, there's a couple of, there is a housing geared to income, but also there's affordable housing for the working poor. Most working poor cannot afford to save the down deposit to buy something. I would like to start with one building, apartment building. They can buy no down payment, no interest for 10 years. After that, they have low interest. And then plus we have to build housing geared to income. Also, we can, developers give them 5 years to develop the area and give them 10 years no property tax to keep the housing low. There is a ways of getting this done. We just have to focus differently.
Thank you, Milena. Steve Rowe had his hand up. We'll start, just so people know, if you indicate, I just Narinder next after Steve, and then Dan and Christine. Sorry, and then Ellen and Laura. So I think we've got Steve next on the list. Steve.
Okay. So Section 37 of the Planning Act, it's a great idea to get the developers to put in a section of affordable housing. Unfortunately, City Council in the past has found one way to look at things, and they've just focused on that, Section 37 being the current one. To me, I think we need to be looking at all avenues to possibly create affordable or income housing, including things like laneway housing where it makes sense. We need to have the city actually do more than the 4 cents on every dollar that was needed for affordable housing that they're currently spending. We need to, as a city councilor, I would be pushing for them to actually add in the other 96 cents that they should have been paying all along. On top of the laneway housing, there's other affordable housing providers such as Inwell Habitat and Kiwanis Homes. I've actually worked with Habitat for Humanity as a board member of the Eva Rothwell Center to provide land for them.
And that's time, Steve.
To create housing. Yeah.
Thanks. Nurinder.
So community benefits agreement actually allows the city to leverage urban developers to allocate funds inside of their development plan as a charge towards community benefits. So that could be up to 10% of a new condo development being allocated inside that development for affordable units. So if there was a unit being, a building built for 1,000 units, 100 of those would be mandated to be affordable. I think that's a wonderful solution, as well as a fund to encourage residents who want to renovate their basements, so long as that fund in exchange turns into an affordable housing solution for our residents, as well as working ongoing with Indwell and other kinds of strategic partners where we can leverage our public funds for a continuum of collective resources, but more importantly, affordable units that are for renters as well as first-time purchasers.
Thank you. Dan Smith.
Well, I think, yeah, I am for increasing the density of housing in the ward, in the city in general. So, some of the most efficient cities in the world, the most efficient cities in the world, have high population densities in their downtown core. I'm thinking like Vancouver, Paris, they have high population densities. You're putting much less roadways, sewer lines, infrastructure to service those people. With that comes a reduced tax base, which helps keep, that also works its way into affordability. So I do think there's a lot of benefits, not to mention the increased supply of housing by the densification, with keeping in mind the concerns of residents. I know I don't want a 30-story tower going up on my west or east side, blocking out the sunlight on certain times of day. But also, we need to be looking at changing the zoning on certain things, like I'm a property manager. One of my clients wanted to build a fourplex. The property was 40 square meters too small to build a fourplex. Like, there was absolutely
time, Dan.
Oh, sorry. I had so much to say.
Christine Sprague.
Good evening, everybody. What I would like to do, if I'm elected, is, you know how we have empty buildings and all that? Why don't we renovate them and make them low-income housing? Because we're saving our history. So what I would do is I would renovate the buildings and make sure that they get done properly. Instead of, you know, building a brand new structure, let's keep our history alive and redo it from the ground floor up. Because that's how we keep old buildings. Because if we, you know, build brand new, the money's not going to be there. So I'm thinking, why don't we just build it from the ground up and just do a face front to the building? Because there's no sense of making a brand new building if we have all these empty buildings sitting there doing absolutely nothing. So I'm thinking maybe what we should do is just make it from the ground.
It's time. LM Bureau.
Yes, thank you. There's a lot of options to work with here. We've heard Section 37. There's also some housing that we currently own. The city housing has a horrible deficit when it comes to renovating. We currently have hundreds of units sitting there unempty. We should be addressing things that we can touch that are tangible right now, investing in the housing stock that we have. There's other formulas, as was spoken to, such as a key housing for low-income workers. We've had a program, I believe, was canceled about 7 years ago, which allowed the purchase, the first-time owner of key workers, if you wish, to buy a first-time home with a forgivable loan. There's other things, such as low-barrier housing, which would address homelessness that is a big issue in our ward for single people. So there's many ways to address this, and that's what we have to look at, investing wise dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Laura Farr.
So to go back to Melena's first point about creating a fund that would help people with their down payment assistance. So the city still does currently have the down payment assistance program. Part of it is that they have to wait for the down payments to be paid back, which can take between 10 and 15, sometimes 20 years for people to pay those back because there is an interest-free portion of that. The second part is, yes, there's Section 37. There's incentivizing things through property tax incentives or things like Kitchener-Waterloo has done to encourage laneway homes and accessory buildings, pocket houses. But the thing that I think is most important, and I know we all agree on this, is that we're not doing enough now, and we need to be more proactive.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm against laneway housing. I think it's too much of a concentration of people in one area. I think it should be. I think it's really it's going to be issues in regards to space for people and movement through the community. As far as first-time buyers, I would think the best way to do it would be a tax incentive, a tax break by the city, maybe 50% off the tax for the first 3 years when a first-time buyer. That way a first-time buyer can purchase. It would be more affordable. It would give them a foot into the community as far as purchasing a house. And that's how I...
Thank you. So we've got time left if anyone else. Steve Rowe, and please just indicate to us and we'll start another speakers list. Okay.
One of the things I've noticed when I've been out canvassing is the number of vacant homes that I'm actually knocking on the doors, and they're truly vacant. So one of the things I was thinking, while some of my other candidates here have actually chosen that as an opportunity to put up a free sign, I was actually thinking of it as a way to increase our affordable housing revenue or inventory. So I was thinking, why isn't the city contacting these property owners and saying, well, okay, we know for some reason you're not living in that property. Why wouldn't we just take over a property management deal with them? And we could actually, at that point, create more affordable housing. It's housing that's already there. It's housing that's vacant. Why aren't we actually using it?
I think Dan Smith and then Melina.
Yeah, there are a number of properties in the city that are vacant currently, and I would agree with Stephen. There's one on King William and East Ave that's been vacant for at least the past 13 years that I've been riding past it. The city should look at its inventory of vacant houses, see what could be done about those. Also, even some of the issues, like as I was talking about zoning earlier, I mean, some of the secondary units, could we look at making more secondary units legal? A lot of the zoning seems completely arbitrary. Like it's pretty much impossible to get a legal basement apartment. And a lot of it has nothing to do with the safety of it. It has, if it's 50% of it is, more than 50% of it's below grade, that's illegal. If the ceiling height is less than 7.5 feet for a basement unit, that's illegal. Those units could be shut down. So it's we need to be able to look at, and a lot of those units possibly could be potentially opened up if some of the zoning was changed. So they're smaller units, but I mean, it does help with some of the issues for increasing more housing.
Thanks, Dan. Melina.
As far as renovating the old buildings, that a lot of times costs actually more than building a brand new building because it's very intense, it's very expensive, and very high cost. So basically, and we can't force people to just take houses away. The only way we have to facilitate, and we need a lot of housing. We have so many people that are homeless also in the city.
Thank you. Laura Farr.
So part of the issue of just taking over privately owned homes is that then the city would then be opened up to liability and legal costs for that. It's a great idea, but how do you incentivize a private owner to say, hey, open up your house, make it livable, make it a rent geared income unit, because let's face it, what's affordable for some of us isn't affordable what's for the rest of us. And we're talking about affordable housing, we mean rent geared to income housing that people can afford to live in, which is defined by 30% of whatever you bring home. So that being said, I know that a lot of the vacant registry is actually done by owner. They're allowed to, it's not mandatory, so they volunteer to be put on it. And what happens then is that you create, as we've been canvassing, you see all of these vacant units that aren't on that registry list. So the city doesn't actually have a comprehensive list of all of the units that are vacant, which is also a problem.
Thank you. Christine Sprague.
You know, I've been, part of Acorn Canada, And the things that I hear about when you said that we should not make old buildings, make them low-income housing, I beg to differ. These, like, it's going to save people money. I'm sorry, it's going to save millions of money. I know that people are struggling with their jobs and all that, but if you look at what's happening right now, like you say about the homeless and all that, yes, I'm aware of the homeless. Yes, I'm aware of what's happening, but people need homes. And when you said, Steve, that, you know, you've been going to vacant houses, yes, so have I. But that's where we make a list and make a chat mark and say, okay, so how do we talk to the city about this, and how do we bring this to attention without, you know, making a big fuss and saying, well, this is what's happening. So if I'm elected as your city councilor, I will look into it.
Thank you. Alain?
There are certainly many options here, and there's a lot of different people and different needs. We haven't spoken about seniors aging in place, and a lot of seniors are currently living below poverty levels, even though they've got a entirely bought house. They're sitting on a large asset that they can't liquidate. So there's a lot of different communities we need to respond to. I don't think there's one specific one. I think the housing problem is substantial, whether it is affordable housing for key workers, for seniors, or for people that are suffering from homelessness. So this is a big problem, a problem that you have shared with us, and I certainly believe that we have many, many options to solve them, but we must move forward and address them.
Narendra.
Another solution here could be actually supporting cooperative housing. We had a movement in the 90s that actually allowed a lot of people to collectivize their resources and jointly govern safe, affordable houses that benefited from a community model of housing and also raising children and raising our families. So I think that the city could also be looking at how could we be working with federal government, provincial funding, and also community resources like individuals who can collectivize down payment funds and actually create cooperative housings as well. So it's not just about making sure that we're leveraging our public funds and holding our developer investors accountable to making sure that there's affordable housing stock, but also incentivizing collective home ownership. It's a solution that many young families are turning to in our city and in our ward already in terms of converting their homes so that they're two families living in one home at the very least.
Thank you. Steve Deneau.
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, this affordable housing issue is really outside Hamilton's issue. This is a federal issue. This is people coming in our country, purchasing homes, and leaving them vacant. This is something that we should be talking to our federal representatives about. So, you know, we can only do so much. This is happening in New Zealand. This is happening in Australia. The same thing. You can read that. And so we have to make our federal politicians accountable for that. And that's the best issue we can do in regards to that.
Thank you. Laura Farr.
So I had a point that was going to bring up the Broadlands of the provincial government, but when we were looking at the commercial vacancies on Barton Street, the Barton Canal Corridor study, we discovered that the majority of the vacant storefronts were actually owned by Hamiltonians. This myth, this trope of the vacant Toronto or elsewhere landlord, it's not true. But I did the research. We know who owns them. Like, okay. So no, they're not though. Okay, but this is my minute.
Please let the speaker continue.
May I continue? So we know that for sure because I worked within and we saw where the people who owned the houses and where the property tax bills were going were living, first of all. Second of all, the current provincial government just canceled the Brownlands deal with Mohawk College, which has also snowballed into us as Hamiltonians losing a really wonderful affordable housing project that was going to be on York Boulevard. So we also need to be aware of the current climate provincially and federally and trying to work with those partners that don't seem to be paying that much attention or wanting to give us more money.
Okay. Alain Bureau.
Yes. That's correct. I think everybody's sharing particular ideas, and that's how we have to go about it. There isn't one particular solution. I look at the question itself. Section 37 is reliant on new development. So if there's no new development, we don't get new affordable housing. So it's important to be able to attack this from a variety of angles. The federal government has just released some funding for housing. It will take some time for it to come through, but that is one avenue. Another avenue, as mentioned, is cooperative housing. There are so many possibilities. The thing is that we have to action them. It's not just a matter of talking about it, but it's actually doing something about it. And certainly our housing stock is one. We're looking at property standards. There's so many issues around housing. It's not just affordability. It's healthy, safe housing for everyone.
Thank you. Dan Smith.
I know as my work as a property manager, one of my clients was looking at developing a larger building, a multi-unit sort of medium-rise building. One of the stumbling blocks to it was getting financing. It's incredibly difficult to get financing for purpose-built rentals. That's why we see a lot of it end up going to condos. You can do the pre-sales, get your financing that way. I know the city did have a bit of a loans development. They loaned money to some people to purchase that building on Mary Street near Cannon, I believe, several years ago. The fellow the group that bought it, sold it to, I believe it was Harry Stinson, for quite a profit to themselves. I mean, I think that was executed extremely poorly, but done correctly. I think constantly giving financing to help I guess it'd be called like mezzanine financing to developers to build purpose-built housing. That is one way the city could help. I think it is, and with an MBA in finance, I'd be somebody who could definitely oversee that.
Sorry. Oh, Christine. Okay.
Yep.
You know, what you said was so offensive, really, because, you know, not everybody comes from Toronto to come over here. So you have to, no, you have to be careful what you say.
Please let the person with the mic speak.
You have to be careful what you say, because you know what? These Hamiltonians risk everything what they own to live here in Hamilton. And I live here in Hamilton, Ontario, and I love this city so much. And I'm a suburban hub person. And you know, every time when I hear people say, well, everybody comes from Toronto, that's not true. You know, I'm talking. Thank you.
Please, one person at a time, please.
When people tell me that they want things getting done properly, that this is what's happening with City Council right now, is we're bickering over the stupidest things. You know, we have to start listening to these guys, because these guys know what they're talking about. These guys want to change. That's why I'm entered in this race.
Christine. Thank you. Milena.
At the Gibson School, for example, it's going to be converted to condo. These are high-priced condos. No poor person can afford this. That's my issue. A lot of these nice buildings are way out of reach for most Hamiltonians. Has nothing to do with out of town, Hamilton, whatsoever. This is why we need to build from ground zero brand new buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, and that pretty much takes us to end of time. Thank you, everyone. This is, we're really, the 1 minute time limit, I think, has you all hopping, but I feel badly cutting people off, but we have to keep doing it that way. Okay, we're going to move on to question number 2, and we have pulled the names. So Stephen Rowe, you'll be the first respondent, and I'm going to read the question. Ward 3 residents pay as much as 3 times the transit levy to ride the same bus as residents in Stony Creek and Dundas. Do you use the bus? If not, why not? What can be done to fix the HSR? And Stephen, we'll let you start.
Okay, so the transit levy speaks to area rating funds, and I actually looked into that. The area rating funds really need to be revamped for everything. But to answer the questions, do I ride the bus? No. Why do I not ride the bus? Because I'm like most of other council that was polled on it, it doesn't go where I need it to go, right? So as a profession or a logistics professional for the last 25 years, I can tell you that the HSR system is inefficiently routed, it's inefficiently run, and it really needs to be revamped along I often tell people we can't have any conversation about LRT, which we're going to talk about later, without actually building in a whole conversation about revamping all of transit in the city. That includes HSR and DARTs. What can be done to fix it is actually throw it all up in the air and reschedule, reroute everything. There's so many inefficiencies in the HSR system right now that I actually think that there's buses to expand now.
Christine.
To answer your question, do I ride the bus? Hell yeah. Do I enjoy riding bus? Yes, but there's only one problem. I carry this. What happens to me is the ramps don't work. And sometimes I have to ask the bus driver to lower the bus down for me. Do I always have to do that? Yes. But is it their job to do it? Yes. So what I would do for the HSR to make it better is I would do it from the buildings. Hire from the people ground up to make it have an overhaul. Because if we do not do it that way, because all these managers are saying, well, the buses are working. Yes, the buses are doing a lot of things, but they're not working for us. What are they doing for us? They're causing us pain. Or sometimes if you miss the bus, then you have to wait in the cold, freezing. It's not right. So what I would do is
That's time, Christine. Laura Farr?
So Hamilton, the city of Hamilton, bought the HSR from Coach Canada in 1960. And since then, we fundamentally haven't changed the majority of the routes. There's been tweaks here and there, but there's been nothing wholesale to sort of, in a fulsome way, deal with where are people going and where are they trying to get to. I take the bus. I'm, I'd say, a lifelong transit user. My mother never drove. I'm also a nervous driver, so I take the bus to get around. And if you try to go on a Sunday, say, just from where we are now on the King Street line to the Unitarian Church on Dundurn, on a Sunday it takes you an hour and a half. That's unacceptable. So we also know that we're about 2 years behind for budget for the 10-year transit plan. So one of the highest priorities is funding that, but then doing even more than that, getting more proactive and saying where are people going and where they want to go to, and fixing the bus routes from there.
Narinder.
Thank you. My daughter loves the bus, so I have to get on the bus with her and take her down to the farmers market and the central library. And it's actually been wonderful to teach her about the city by taking the bus together. I think carrying out and implementing the 10-year transit strategy would go a far way in helping fix the HSR. In terms of some of the failings of our HSR management, there was a delay in hiring new bus drivers, which meant that our current bus drivers were burnt out and the system wasn't responding well to the riders who were looking for rides. So thankfully, 70 new bus drivers have been hired, 3 years a little bit late, but the existing bus routes now have the staff that are required to keep those buses moving. But the 10-year transit strategy actually maps out new routes, and what we need to be doing is making sure that our residents are helping inform what those new routes look like. We've got residents here who have to take a 40-minute bus ride to get to a grocery store, and we know if we did a better job of our north-south connectivity, for residents who live closer to the escarpment to get over to the grocery store, they need to be routed safely.
Alain Bureau.
City planning is all about master plans. Finding out, listening to what the needs are, then taking expertise and making it happen. The problem is we come out with a lot of these plans, a lot of these grand master plans, and then we don't implement them. We don't finance them. The case of the HRC and the transit plan has been exactly that. We seem to be constantly doing a catch-up. The funding is not there, or there's delays in council for a variety of reasons. Obviously, we need better transit. I take the bus almost every day. I take a variety of buses going many parts of the city, and I see constantly delays. So we need to actually make plans and execute them, which is what I think is the first step to this. LRT is also part of that plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Alain. Steve.
I think as far as the busing situation, I think if the money that is available, the $1 billion, we can put some of that money to improve the HSR. That's always an option, I would think, if the money is available. As far as the LRT, I'm totally against it.
Milana, and just in case you're wondering, we are going through and letting everyone have a first turn before we go to second round. So Milana is next, and then...
We need to, first of all, the bus, HSR, should be Blast Narrow Express route right across the city, from Waterdown, Ancaster, Binbrook, Stony Creek to 50 Road. And all areas should pay equally for the bus system. Once we have a Blast Express route, people will take the bus. If you live in Ancaster and you work downtown, you can use these funds, no paying for parking, pay for the transit. That will change everything. And Kingston has done that, and their ridership has gone through the roof in 4 years. So we need to redo this. And we need electric new technology buses to add to the fleet we already have.
Thank you. Dan.
Yeah, I ride the bus occasionally, not too much, but the nature of my work just doesn't facilitate riding a bus too well. Being a property manager, I sometimes have to carry materials and such around and get to odd areas of town in a quick period of time. But, so yeah, that's why I generally don't ride the bus. I do take it occasionally. My kids like to ride it. They have great fun. And what can be done to fix the HSR? Well, the HSR has a 19% driver attendance problem. There's a 19% failure to show up to work. That's a huge issue. I mean, I think the first start is what can we do to improve morale at the HSR? 19%, I mean, those are buses that end up not going out on the line, people waiting for a bus that doesn't come. If you're looking at ridership going down, I mean, that's a huge part of the problem. That was one reason why I'm sometimes not the biggest fan of riding the bus, is because if I'm out in an area in Stony Creek or whatever, I want to get a bus, I don't know when it's coming. You look on the app and it sometimes doesn't show up for 20 minutes, half hour after it's scheduled to show up. So yeah, hiring more drivers. Okay.
Sorry, Christine?
Are you forgetting about me? No. I'm here too, you know. So, yes, like I said, I take the city bus, but I also take Darts Transit. They've been out without a contract for 3 years. And what's happening is with the Darts Transit, the city's not doing nothing about it. We have a member of the board, Laura Farr. Not anymore, but she was. You know, but what I would like to do, if I want to get this bus fixed, yes, we need to hire new buses, but what about the drivers? Aren't we not asking them how their injuries are happening? Because these seats are not working properly? Yes. That's why we're losing bus drivers every time, because of injuries with their knees, their backs, because, yeah, they're on sick leave because of the back injuries of these buses. So what I would like to do is make sure that these bus drivers have proper seats. Then we're not losing drivers.
Narinder.
One point that I wanted to emphasize is embedded in the question, which is about area rating, which creates a two-tier taxation system when it comes to how our transit is paid for. So a house that's assessed for $450,000 in Stony Creek, near where one of our candidates are running, pays about $100 and something in transit levy. Now, I live at King and Sherman, and my house is assessed by the city at about $270,000, and I pay $250 into that transit levy. So I am paying proportionately 2 to 3 times more than some of our other residents. So I think one of the ways to fix the HSR is to do away with the area rating system and create an equalized payment system so that all residents of Hamilton who benefit from the HSR are paying equally into the transit system, which would allow our management to actually have the resources that they need to expand the line, to make sure it's maintained well, and to make sure that our bus drivers are getting a fair wage and that we're hiring more people.
Laura.
So I'm going to address Christine's comment, because no, what I said was I'm not on the board of Darts. I sit on a board with the gentleman who runs Darts, which is Mark Mindorf, and we had been talking about the contract out of the election. Him saying, I'd said that during the Cable 14 debate, that he's doing everything he can to make sure that the drivers get a contract. I don't sit on the board. Secondarily, to Nariner's point about area rating, the only issue with getting rid of area rating is getting the rural councillors to agree to get rid of area rating, and that's why it still exists. They don't want to stick their political necks out, and they have it for a long time. They've wanted to punt it down the road. That's why we're, 2001 was amalgamation. It's now 2018, and it's still there. When 2000 I'm going to get my dates. 2010, when Mayor Bertina was first inaugurated, they all high-fived each other coming back in the office that they did something about area rating, which was kind of, they did something about area rating, and they didn't want to touch it furthermore because it is such a political hot potato. So we do need to do, again, this is, I think, a theme of the night, things that are more proactive, listening to residents and ensuring that those services are there, because I can tell you, people in Binbrook want buses too. Their councillor just tells them they don't.
Laura. Milena.
Well, there's a couple of things. Under occupational health and safety, sitting on the job is the worst job to have. So if you're driving 6 hours, 8, whatever, that is the worst job. That scheduling has to be done to accommodate it for them to have a break. Second, the buses are only given 3 minutes from stop to stop. If they get wheelchair, it takes them more time to get people on. The bicycles loaded, all those issues. We're not really fair to the bus system. That's why they're running late. That's why we have all these problems.
Thank you. Alain.
That sounds like a good argument for LRT. You can get on and off very easily. You have wheelchairs, bicycles, and so on. So that sounds very good. Thank you for that. And definitely there's, so we are talking about HSR, but there's other things to do. And part of that is an intermodal shift. That's why we are building bike lanes. That's why we're encouraging people to use our community as a space to travel in, not just as a place to drive through. Renovating our cityscape, allowing people to get on the street and actually make it a pleasant walk. In the last 5 years where we have resided, or almost 5 years, 7 cars have hit buildings at less than 200 meters from our home. There's a problem. That's why we're not seeing a lot of intermodal shift. But I would certainly promote that even more. Thank you.
That's time. Christine. Steve. Oh, no, it's Christine for Dave.
When we talk about the HSR, yes, that we have to have improvements. But what I'm saying for the HSR is, if you look at what's happening, is they're servicing one area, Victoria and Ferry. And sometimes for me, when I'm walking, yes, I missed a bus, but it stops on a weekend on Victoria and Ferry. I don't want to see that anymore. I want to see the buses come more frequently. Everybody's been saying, well, everybody's having their buses up there. Well, what about the people that live on Victoria and Ferry? We have to stop we have to walk all the way to Barton to take a bus? For people like me, I can't walk that far because I'm carrying a cane. I think of the seniors also. I live in that area. They have to stop what they're doing because they can't take the bus or bus.
It's time. Steve Deneau.
LRT is not the magic bullet. Just better busing is what I would say the magic bullet is. And as far as bicycle, from what I see a lot of bicycles using these bike lanes. Now, I have to laugh sometimes because I see Mary Poppins riding on the bike there with no helmet on. I see the police wear helmets. And there's a question in regards to the in regards to bicycle safety and how cars mount curbs and hit bikes. I would like to know about pedestrian and bicycle accidents. That's statistically has greatly increased. So let's not just talk about cars as the issue. Let's talk about bikes. Yeah, let's talk about transit. And that's basically it.
Laura Farr.
I think that no matter how old you are, if you're 8 or 80, if you're in a car, on a bike, on an LRT once it's built, or walking, none of us deserves to be hit by anything. End point.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, we still have a few minutes left. Is there anyone else in the front who wants to speak to the transit issue before we move on to the next question? Melina.
I was canvassing. I met a couple of young people that actually bicycle around. And they said there should be more side streets, so to avoid major streets are a huge problem for bicycles because the cars go to, and I've seen it, people go way too close to the car, to the bicycle, and something goes wrong and people get hit. So respect has to be there.
Helen.
To establish a space for safe traveling around our city, we need to establish it for everyone. Nobody is to blame, and as mentioned, nobody wants to get hit or any type of collision. So we really have to plan it so everybody can use it. Whether it's affordable, whether it's because you can't use a car, you don't have the money for a car, you have to be able to get around this city safely. We have some of the worst statistics when it comes to pedestrian and cyclist collisions, not between, but with cars. When I live on a street that's less than 140 meters long, when you walk out of your house, it's a dead end on each side, and there's a car flipped on your residential street, you really have to wonder what's happening in our city. Many people are afraid to drive. Drivers are afraid to drive. So I can imagine why we don't see that many pedestrians on our streets. We need to create a safe environment.
Stephen Rowe.
Yeah, just to bring it back to the question at hand here, guys, we were actually talking about transit. So actually, so as I said at the beginning, I think that transit just needs to be reworked, rescheduled, rerouted. And I think a lot of those problems will be taken care of once we start looking at LRT, which, Melina, is actually the B part of BLAST. Just thought I'd help you out with that, right?
Dan Smith.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think we do. The question was, like, I was just thinking about that too, Stephen, about we were talking about how to improve transit. I don't know if any new technologies have been looked at, like some of the issues. I mean, there's driver absenteeism, there's like some of it's scheduling issues. I just wonder, are there some of the artificial intelligence technologies out there now for scheduling bus routes, just finding better ways to schedule it so it is more efficient for people? Because I've noticed it seems like the city's information systems are quite out of date in a number of areas that, and I just think maybe that could be applied to solving some of the bus issues.
Thank you. Christine.
You know, as I was driving down the road, on Burlington Street and even Barton and Cannon, the roads are horrible. And that's what I would like to look at for the transit system, is because the transit people are always asking me, can we please get these roads done fast, because they're not working properly. So these drivers are getting injured because of these roads are not getting done properly, and we're always doing these patch jobs. So how many of you got injured on a bus because of these roads not done? It's sickening. You know, it's getting sickening. I'm tired of the patch jobs. So if I'm elected as city councillor, I will go to the HSR and say, you know what, I'm going to help you get these roads done properly.
Thank you. Alain.
Just one comment on the level of service that we're getting at HSR is also reflective of the actions of management. When it comes to data collection, we've been working on a data collection project on buses because we don't have much data for the last 2.5 years. I was at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, and I saw a slew of systems that are available to collect this data. But we're still working on our own when most other cities actually purchase such a device or such systems to simply get the data quickly.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to move on to question number 3 now, and Nan Durnan, your name has been pulled, so you'll be responding first. And I'm going to read the question. And it is kind of, I guess you did kind of jump into this question in your conversations in this last question. The City of Hamilton identifies the social costs of Hamilton's 7,900 plus annual motor vehicle collisions, resulting in 19 fatalities and 1,824 injuries at $608 million each year. Routinely, cars mount curbs at busy intersections, putting pedestrians and cyclists at risk. So the question is, how can Hamilton's streets be made safer for pedestrians, cyclists, and those with mobility devices? And Narinder, we're going to ask you to start, please.
Thank you. I think the first thing that we all need to acknowledge is those of us who are drivers are part of the problem, right? We tend to drive through other people's neighborhoods a little bit quicker than we would expect people to drive in our own neighborhoods. So our car culture in this city needs to be addressed. And part of it is the legacy of the fact that we've been designed to be a throughway city, which puts a lot of pressure on our residential streets where people are flying through. The 10-year transit plan, the transportation plan that the city recently passed includes phenomenally great best practices when it comes to traffic calming as well as complete streets. Now we need the political will to make sure that those solutions actually get implemented when it comes to new road work. The challenge becomes is that we have a legacy of old roads that also need tending to make sure that we're OAD compliant before 2025. 2025 is not that far away, and the city is actually obligated by the provincial government to make sure that our sidewalks are accessible, but also making sure that in the winter they're accessible also.
And Dan, you're next.
Yeah, I think there's a number of measures that could be taken to make the streets safer. A lot of it's just seemingly insignificant things that help. Speed traps in certain areas. I know as a property manager, I do a lot of work in Westdale. They have the speed trap set up when you go over the overpass, and they only have it set up every so many weeks. But after time, you get to notice that, hey, it becomes habit that you just slow down, because before traffic would get up to 80, 90 kilometers an hour going over that bridge. After a while, I notice the traffic just constantly never goes above about 60. So speed traps can kind of change people's habits. There's the issues. I drop my kids off at the bus stop. The school bus lights are flashing. I see the same cars every day blast past the school bus with its lights flashing. I've called the police. Absolutely nothing was done about it. They never showed up. I called, left a message. I called one number, was left to another, referred to another, finally left a message. So that's an issue, just maybe getting a stop there once in a while, just to check for people blasting past school buses.
It's time.
There's so much to talk about.
Sorry. Stephen.
Oh, this way.
So one of the big problems I have with this is actually the question, right? How do we make it safer for pedestrians, cyclists, and those with mobility devices? I actually think that's kind of the problem that we're faced with. It's always become either or. I think we need to figure out how to make the streets safer for everyone. Narendra actually spoke about the 10-year transportation plan, thank you. And one of the things that struck me as odd when they put that in place was the fact that they built the 10-year transportation plan before the truck route plan was actually put together. One of the biggest flaws I've actually seen with the cycling track on Cannon was the fact that the corner of Wellington and Cannon is right at the main truck route that goes through Hamilton to get our transport trucks and our products that we buy into downtown. Well, that's to me a license to, or it's just an accident looking for a place to happen. So perhaps there was a little bit more work should have been done on the transportation master plan. Maybe look at all of the master plans before you built a transportation master plan.
Steve.
Thanks.
Laura?
Thanks. So I know in our neighborhoods, our roads are a little less wide on our side streets. I live one block off Wentworth. I live in between Barton and Cannon. It is a thoroughfare. There is a commercial business on our street. Lots of our kids play in the front. My son Connor, he's 5. He runs with a pack of kids in the front porch. We're front porch people. But now we take our chairs off our porches and put them on the road. My neighbor got a hairdryer and cut the cord off and pretends it's a speed gun. That's how we slow people down on our street. The tactical urbanism, Dave Stevens has been a huge advocate of that over the years, and it has worked in places. In Ward 1, they've gotten bollards put in, they've gotten cement curbs poured, and a few other things. In 2015, the city council adopted Vision Zero, and they didn't implement any of it. So again, we have another implementation problem of something that sounds good on paper. Here's the really great, good feeling thing, but then they don't move to practically implement any of it. And those are the kinds of interventions that we need to be looking at on a fulsome scale in all of our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Steve, Deneau.
Okay, I have a problem with the question, actually. This routinely cars mount curbs. I guess that's my biggest problem with the question itself. But outside of that, these bicycle areas that they have bicycles lined up for people to use, pardon me? Sobeys, okay. You see people, they can take access to these bicycles, but there's no helmets. I mean, sure, anybody over 18 doesn't need a helmet, but I mean, I think this is a big issue. There should be some who's accountable for that? If they fall off the bike or they hit a car or whatever, I mean, somebody's accountable for that. I mean, I just think it's ridiculous. They've got this system and they've got no proper safety procedure. I don't care if the law says over 18. What kind of examples does that set to children under 18 years old, seeing somebody driving around with no... you know what? If someone gets hurt because of this, I'd have a lawsuit against that. Just the fact that there's no real safety.
That's time, Steve. Ellen.
Interestingly enough, the Order of Doctors in Quebec, who were for many years promoted the use of helmets, has changed its tune this year. They've now recommended or removed the helmet as a safety feature, and they recommend building infrastructure, protected laneways for bicycles. Other issues that come to play are safety zone policies. We currently have a variety of interacting spaces or uses of our streets and our sidewalks. I look at around Kathy Weaver. 6 kids have been hit in the last 2 years because there's been changes to the configuration and there's a truck route going by there. We should be implementing a policy that talks about Vision Zero, and specifically policies that apply throughout the city, throughout all recreational and public facilities such as schools, elementary schools, where you might have something as simple as, if there's a street around a school, you can't go into more than 25 kilometers an hour. As an example. Isn't that novel? Whether you're a truck, whether you're... Just stop.
Time, sorry. Malena. Oh, sorry. Christine and then Malena. Sorry. I'm getting Christine and then Malena.
Go ahead. Thank you. No, go ahead. No.
One of you should go.
Okay, I'll go. So, I live on a street where it's always busy. You know, and you know this, Steve, on Francis and Victoria, and Emerald. And I'm seeing cars go fast there. Yes, they put a stop sign there, but there's only one problem. The roads are not getting done. You know, we see every mountain, the mountain get their work done. They're getting work done, and it's like, okay, what about the north end? What about you guys? We have to wait to get the roads done? No, I don't think it's right. I think what we need to do is get the roads done, because these are important. Because yes, maybe we need to put a speed bump somewhere, then these kids don't, get hurt, because we need to slow down traffic. But what's that going to do to solve that? It's just, is it going to...
That's time, Christine. Thank you. Elena.
In some European countries, they have put 20 kilometers in the school zone. And just maybe so many feet before you hit the school area and after that. And they have reduced, there's been a huge reduction in the children being hit in the school area. Second of all, there is no respect from pedestrians. Don't respect drivers or bicycles don't respect either. Drivers don't respect anybody. I've been hit by a bicycle on a sidewalk. I've been hit, my car's been hit when I'm sitting on a stop sign and somebody's racing wrong way on Main Street on a sidewalk. So I am familiar. We need to, I think it's an education that we need to do. And that comes to province under driver safety. We should all be forced to be re-educated every 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Dan?
Yeah, I think possibly a good first step in this is we need to plan our cities better so people don't need to drive as much. We need walkable communities. We need grocery stores nearby, hardware stores close by. Getting people off the roads, less traffic is a really good start. I mean, it takes me about half an hour to walk to the nearest grocery store. I can't fit all my groceries on the bike. I could probably get a buggy, but things like that, just making little communities. I've been in New York. You can live within a block of wherever your apartment is. You've got your dentist, your doctor, your pharmacist, grocery store, everything within short distance. So that's creating livable communities. I think the LRT will help facilitate that, the development along the line. That's going to help greatly with reducing the number of people that need to get in their car and go somewhere. And then, there's just micro issues in certain pockets of the ward. I know around The stadium, there's that bend in Cannon Street where a car just several weeks ago mounted the curb, rolled over, flipped over, almost took out a few kids. Like Alain was saying, could we get a protected lane? We have the bike lane right along there. Could we get some concrete barriers along places like that? Thank you.
Steve.
Okay. Lily, you going to wear your helmet? Okay, I disagree with what you're saying. And as far as we need to wear helmets, as far as this doctor that states this, that we don't need helmets, I'm not going to tell my daughter not to wear a helmet. I don't care what this doctor states. And this sounds more like Agenda 21. I think we need the car, and the car's not going anywhere. So if you people think you're riding your bikes is a great thing, you drive out to Ancaster with your bike and see how far you get. Go up the 403 with your bike and see how far you get.
Alain.
That's really hard to follow. I'm glad that you're listening to what people are saying in the community.
I'm talking overall city.
Wait, please.
Because a lot of people are talking about the same thing, whether they're car drivers, whether they're pedestrians or cyclists. Our streets aren't made for living, playing. They're just made for cars and only cars. So that's certainly something we can address with robust street planning. I mean, you know, we're seeing a lot of street traffic or speed bumps, being installed. There are many ways to mitigate this. We just have to address it head on. I am not ready to say to a particular group in this room or outside in our community whether they're valid or not. They want to be on the street, they want to walk, they want to cycle, they want to transit, or they want to use their car. All of this has to be done in the safest and healthiest way possible for both the individuals and our community and its vibrancy.
And that's time. Laura?
I'm really glad that you had to go after that. Thanks, Lynn. I'm really glad you had to go after that. Thanks, Lynn. So I definitely agree. And for those of us that have been knocking on doors, we've heard it from, like Alain said, from drivers, cyclists, people on their porches with children, seniors, people with mobility issues. They want to be able to enjoy where they live. And there are several issues with speeding cars in our neighborhoods, as we know. And I don't think it's just any one pocket. I've seen it all over the ward. Doesn't matter if you're in Keith, you're in South Sherman, you're in Crown Point, here in Gala, it's everywhere. Or Stinson, which is our new neighborhood. It's everywhere. And the thing is that there are tools we can use without costing taxpayers any more money. Particularly with things in Europe, they've used optical illusions on crosswalks to actually subconsciously slow drivers down. So this is something that is low cost effective, it works. So these are things that we need to be looking at to help with our traffic issues in the interim.
No, wait, we've got a couple more before you, Steve. Narinder? We're keeping a list.
Thank you. Just in terms of other ideas that could be used to implement safer pedestrian, cyclist, and mobility device traffic. So one of the issues in the winter time, especially when I talk to senior residents who live in dense homes, is the inability to have safe access, the amount of snow that gets plowed onto the sidewalks, the kind of ice that it creates. I would love the city to actually create a safe passage in the wintertime to make sure that our sidewalks are plowed in a way that people can plan their routes. So whether it's over by Wellington to make sure that our residents in First Place can go, whether it's 30 Sanford, all the way down to the east side, to have a few designated streets that are going to be safe passage in the wintertime. Our alleyways are another underutilized resource. If we thought about making sure that they're safe and making sure that they're clean and exploring them for bike lanes or bikeways so that we're increasing north-south connectivity, but also giving chances for people to safely get around their neighborhoods, I think that that's another thing that we could be looking at.
Christine.
How many of you remember the beat cop? I remember that. I think we need to bring more cops on the road to monitor, the safety for children. I think we need to bring that back because if we don't, then we're going to have speeders constantly. The barrier issue, yeah, that's going to cost a lot of money to put up. So I think we need to bring more cops on the road because, they get paid good money to do it. So I think we need to do that more better.
Steve.
Okay, you mentioned something about speeding cars going through and all this. So I also have a problem with cyclists running through stop signs. I stop at the stop sign, cyclist goes beaming right through the stop sign. Now let's talk about other issues. This is not just about the car. This is about the cyclists not obeying the rules. Now I think the police should ticket cyclists, and that's part of my agenda if elected.
Dan.
Yeah, I think some of it's just like the traffic management, traffic control in the city. I mean, has anybody ever driven down and noticed the light timing on Wellington? It's almost timed, so you got to go about 75 kilometers an hour to make all the lights. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's why I think you get a lot of people blasting past. They're rushing to make the lights. If you have better timing, better control, better technologies to control the flow of traffic, you get people going a lot slower. It would make things a lot safer, because it's rushing the lights. I've heard that so many times. People down Holton, there's a stoplight. People rush to make the lights. They get going super fast going down that street. So that's one issue. IT could, some better information technology management of traffic controlling. So that's one of the issues. I mean, rumble strips along some of the streets. If drivers going too fast, that bend around the stadium, I think a rumble strip, you hit that, you find out, hey, I'm going too fast. I'm probably out of time now.
You had a couple seconds, but
okay.
you're done now. So, Narinder.
So fact-based research is an important thing for all councillors to adhere to when it comes to making decisions about policy and recommendations of action. And the facts are, when a vehicle is going 30 kilometers per hour and by chance tends to hit somebody, the probability of that person being able to get up from that impact is exponentially higher than 60 kilometers per hour. 60 kilometers per hour results in fatalities. So I think it's really important that you understand that the facts actually need to be used in governance as well as implementing solutions. So it's not about helmets, it's about making sure cars slow down. The other is looking at best practices. We've got streets in Hamilton, here in Ward 3, over on Holton, where the traffic goes one way and connects to Birch Street, which goes one way the other way. And we have residents painting one-way arrows on the road because the children are tired of getting out on the street and encouraging drivers to, one, slow down, two, inform them that they're going the wrong way.
Time.
So our city actually needs to do a better job of signing as well.
Eileen.
Just wanted to mention that we do have some technology. Actually, we have currently 13 speed cameras, which I'm told only 3 are on at any given time. So there is already cameras out there. There's technology. We're possibly not fully realizing it if we wish. Also, we have to remember that there's only 2 wards in the city that have 5 arteries. So we do have a large volume going through our city, and that causes another issue. That is that we're not to be treated as, our residential areas should not be treated as just car-centric areas. It's not about sharing the road, it's actually sharing it throughout the city. There are many cases where traffic diversion is supposed to go a particular place, but it's a lot easier to just tear through our neighborhood.
Thank you. Any final? Stephen Rowe.
Thanks for that, Alain, because you just reminded me of something. There's currently a movement to make a lot of the one-way streets that we have two-way. And I know it comes, well, hold on a second, folks. That will slow down traffic, I guarantee it. But one of the things it will also do is it will have trucking companies working their way through our residential streets, right? So that's going to become another problem. We just have to figure out how to sort that through. Linda Lukasik has been part of What the Truck and looking at the truck routes. One of the things I would encourage her to do is take a look at how one-way streets do make it more attractive for transport trucks to take those routes as opposed to our residential streets. So when we're looking at one aspect of trying to make things safer on our routes, we also have to make sure that we look at all of the aspects that are associated with making it safer.
Time. Thank you, everyone. So we're going to move on now to question number 4, and our lucky lottery winner for this first response is Christine. So I'm going to read the question, and then we'll move into responses. In Ward 3, the road to opening a small business is long and fraught with costs. Small business owners face lengthy delays obtaining necessary permits while paying for a lease and utilities. What can be done to make opening a small business in Hamilton easier? And Christine?
What I would do is I would cut the red tape that the city is doing, because there's so much red tape going on in these businesses. And yes, it's going to, some of the people are buying it from Toronto, but we need local business. We need to keep it local, because if somebody needs to keep something local, let's do it properly and cut the red tape.
Thank you. Alain Bureau?
Yes, there is certainly a lot of red tape. We constantly see businesses with a coming soon, and you still see it the year later. I have numerous examples. I've been walking up and down our commercial arteries for almost 5 years now, and I'm amazed at how much time opening a business in a small business in our community is so difficult. I hear nightmare stories about signage, the size of particular vent pipes that seem to last forever. No small business can think of opening up if it's going to take 9 months or 12 months for the approval process. Certainly, we need to emphasize a faster system, but we also need to encourage business. I look at a particular program that was actually cut just last year, which was a food handling licensing for people that spoke other languages, specifically Arabic, was cut. So now suddenly you don't have access, these people don't have access to a particular type of program.
That's time. Dan.
Somebody who's started a small nonprofit business, Sky Dragon Community Development Cooperative, I know full well the problems in starting a business. We started up a cafe at the place, we have Bread and Roses Cafe, just getting the licensing for the cafe. It was, inspectors are coming back and again. It would be nice if there was maybe a liaison at City Hall you could deal with to help get through some of the hurdles it takes to getting a business going. And it actually took 14 months after we acquired the building for a building permit to go in. We couldn't afford to wait 14 months to start our construction phase, paying a lease, utilities. Yeah, we would have been bankrupt. We would have completely gone under. We did what everybody else does. You put newspaper over the windows and do your renovations anyways and pretend like nothing's going on. Otherwise, you're bankrupt. It's probably not the proper way to do it, but it's if you want to get a business going. So we need to look at ways like, can we get the permits quicker, faster to the business owners that want to start businesses? Maybe certain things could go ahead before the permits even in.
Dan. Thank you.
Okay.
Narinder.
As a small business owner myself, I also know firsthand some of the challenges of navigating city systems and divisions to get all the things in place that you need to open your doors. And I think fundamentally, one of the things that I discovered in researching is that many small businesses who are applying in Ward 3 end up being really excited about the commercial stock, sign a lease, and then discover after the fact that the building is not zoned appropriately for their business. So it would be incredible if the city of Hamilton moved from a first stop plan to a one-stop plan, where we actually created a caseworker system where each small business applicant would have somebody helping them navigate the system, and moving that process so it's transparent online. So as a small business applicant, I can see where my application is in process and progress, so that I can line up what needs to be done, what I need to prioritize in terms of paying, and making sure that my open date doesn't get impacted because I'm jumping hoops and hurdles inside the city system. So fundamentally, it's about making sure that we streamline the process to facilitate more small business in Ward 3, and most importantly, make sure that they are supported in the city system.
Thank you. Stephen Rowe.
So I'm actually kind of glad to hear everybody here that's saying that they want to cut the red tape, because one of the things that I've noticed most often is most small businesses that are trying to start up get killed at the planning committee, and that's by the city councilors, right? So perhaps then if we are all in favor of cutting all the red tape and helping small business, then that should actually help a few more small businesses go through. But one of the things I'd also like to talk about is the fact that building our city on small business, while it's a wonderful idea, we really need to think bigger. We need to think at looking at clean, big industry, because for every industrial job that you create 4 spin-off jobs in service and supply. And so we need to be out actually bringing in the bigger, cleaner industries to actually help our economy and move our economy forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Milena.
Actually, I met some business people that wanted to open in our north end, and there's a lot of brownfields. The red tape we have pushed them away, and they are in Oakville, and they're booming. We lost all this opportunity to employ Hamiltonians. And the whole system needs to be revamped, organized, and processed quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura.
So there is a liaison, believe it or not. There's one for the whole city. And that's part of the problem. It was a new initiative about 3 years ago to help, cut the red tape at City Hall. And like everyone said, people put up the newspaper and they open their business without a license because oftentimes they won't get their license for about a year. That's a problem. Oftentimes the councillor's office or even the mayor's office acts as that liaison, bringing in all the people from different departments and asking them, okay, how can we help these people open their business? And oftentimes it's either something like an old boulevard agreement from the 1960s or something weird within the zoning pre-amalgamation that didn't get caught that hamstrings them up. And what happens then when things get complicated, just like when you have a complicated task you don't want to look at, the staff go, oh, that's really complicated, I'm going to put it over here and do these easy ones. So that's something within the culture of the planning department that absolutely needs to change. It's been going on for years, and it's slowly getting better, especially as more and more people look to open smaller businesses on Ottawa Street, on Barton Street, all these places that are booming now. But we know that we can do better.
Yeah. Steve Deneau.
I just like to reiterate and say that, yeah, I agree that we should reduce the red tape. I would also consider something like reducing business taxes. That may help. That may entice more industry to come into Hamilton. I think that's very important, that if we can attract industry from within Canada, around the world into Hamilton would be a big asset as far as providing new jobs and new opportunities for Hamiltonians.
Ellen.
Yes, definitely small businesses is actually what's booming our economy currently. Without a doubt, we need large corporations, if you wish, or large employers, institutional employers, and so on. We certainly can look at a new industrial zone that could be about emerging technologies, using new technologies, and some of that is actually expanded through large agreements such as a CETA. We've seen over 20% increase in the port activity for agribusiness. So without a doubt, large and small, but small is what is actually the biggest motivator or creator of vibrant streets, and that's what we're looking to push forward, whether it's through a liaison or facilitating centers, facilitating enterprises.
Thank you. Narinder.
I think that the role that councillors play as a liaison for small businesses who are opening up is a phenomenal role that councillors do provide right now. But I think the consistency factor is the key here. It's a city-wide issue. The fact that we have one liaison supporting small businesses is absolutely inefficient and way under what we need. So it would be about making sure as a councillor you're a liaison, but also championing a city-wide system overhaul to support small businesses opening their doors. In terms of the industrial sector, I'd love to see a campus approach where we're integrating light manufacturing, new technology, and actually creating a plan that ECDEV can promote to attract new businesses that are going to be bringing in higher wage and higher employee base businesses into our city. And fundamentally, I think that at the end of the day, that we need to make sure that we are supporting our small businesses. They provide much needed retail space, gathering spaces, and much needed retail services that make a neighborhood what it is.
Time. Milena.
We pride ourselves on having healthcare, education, and public sector work. The problem with these, all these jobs, we don't get property tax from these people. That's why we need businesses, because they pay property tax in order to gain more tax to be able to afford a lot more things in this city.
Christine.
So what I was thinking is one of the candidates a long time ago, he was Matthew Green, and I'm hearing that he does not go to the business bureau. And I was wondering why. You know, why for a counselor, you know, he doesn't go to these business bureau meetings. It's very important for a counselor to hear what's going on with storefronts and for taxes or anything. So I'm asking this question to Nan Durnan because she was endorsed by Matthew Green. Are you gonna, if you're elected, are you gonna go to the business bureaus, or are you just gonna sit on your butt and just go, I'm gonna be like another Matthew Green?
I think you gotta let her respond to that.
Okay, you respond.
Are others comfortable with me allowing a response? All right.
Okay.
Go ahead, Narendra.
So my name is Nan Durnan, and I am not Matthew Green. And so yes, I have his endorsement, but I am my own individual with 20 years experience delivering results when it comes to community development and making sure resources are allocated to cities and to neighborhoods that are in need. I am absolutely committed to BIAs in this city, every single one of them. And if the LRT moves forward, the problem that we have along King Street is that there is no currently a BIA that can represent the collective voices of the businesses who might be impacted by the construction phase. So if I'm elected as city councilor, I would love to champion that kind of table on King Street so that we can bring all the small businesses and large businesses together who can identify how they might be impacted, but more importantly, identify the solutions that they're going to need to make sure residents are still able to find safe passage to support the businesses that are in our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Laura.
Thanks. So to go back to the campus idea, there is actually a light industrial campus type, and I don't mean campus like Mohawk College or education, like a business park idea that they've been sort of slogging through for the last 4 years through the planning process to slated to be north of the General Hospital. They have been strung up and they have money and they're just waiting and sitting to see who is going to help them open their project, because it is bigger than a small business. It's become very complicated, and they become mired in the muck of just the dint that is bylaw and zoning and planning. So that's something that is actually supposed to come to our ward. They actually announced it when Councillor Morelli was still alive. He was working on helping them, and then he passed away. So this has now been waiting for almost 5 years now. And to speak to the others, to the BIAs, Barton and Ottawa Street have certainly grown and shown that small businesses do work in our areas, and King Street has been almost neglected by that process. Years ago, there was someone that did want to start a BIA and couldn't get the other businesses on board to join them. So that would be something that would be great.
Dan.
Yeah, I think the other side of this equation is, I mean, it's all right opening a small business, but small businesses are highly prone to failure. So a lot of new business owners, they're first time in business, they don't exactly know what they need. Like restaurants, when we found out when we opened our cafe at Skydragon Center, we didn't realize it would take several months, no, like about a year to build up a regular clientele base. Just people hear our name, and so I'm wondering, could we look at once getting business starts? Great saying cut red tape, but once these businesses get going, we want them to succeed. We don't want to see people put their effort in, City Hall's effort, their hard-earned money, in to see a business fail. So I think also on the flip side of having a liaison to work with them, and we definitely need more to help people get started up on the businesses. Offer some mentoring, possibly even some, I don't know, I've ran business, I've got my other small business, help start up Skydragon. I own a small business for my livelihood right now. So mentorship of people running small businesses from people that have already done it.
And that's time, Dan.
Okay.
Thank you. Alan.
I just want to invite everyone that is speaking about a BIA in the middle of this city. I have, with 7 other people, have been working on this, and we're about to get approval. So there is, welcome to the Mid-City BIA. Just I thought I'd mention that. So the table is there, it's already set, and it's just a matter of us going forward and doing the complete application process. So it is happening on King and Main between Wentworth and Gage. I just thought I'd share that with you. And also, it's something that, as I mentioned a bit earlier, very dear to me, because I'm being highly supportive of the LRT project. It is crucial that we also address the issues that will occur around the LRT construction, and that I am fully supportive, hence why I'm one of the founders of the Mid-City BIA. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. We have a few more minutes left if anyone else wants to make any comments or add more to their response to this question. No? Going once, going twice? All right. We're going to move on to the fifth and final question. All right, here we go. And I should let you know that Steve Deneau, Steve, your name has been drawn. You're the lucky winner who gets to respond first to the question. So I'm going to read the question first. 6 of the proposed 17 LRT stops will be in Ward 3, putting grocery, shopping, entertainment, and employment within short reach of residents. The project will replace or upgrade almost 100% of the roadway and pipes, representing a tax benefit of about $150 million. It is projected to increase tax assessment by $280 million. At the same time, LRT presents challenges resulting from a multi-year construction process that will put pressure on small businesses and hinder traffic flows. If LRT proceeds, what is the best way to assist those negatively impacted by construction? If LRT does not proceed, how does the city meet its obligations to shift modal share to public transit when as many as 8,900 additional families will be calling downtown home in the next 15 years? So that's a pretty beefy series of multiple questions. So Stephen, 1 minute. Did you want to jump in and get started with responding?
As I stated, I'm against LRT. And my personal opinion is I would just consider running a trolley bus from Eastgate to McMaster. It runs off the power grid. It's environmentally friendly. My concern is if they do decide to go through with this LRT, the environmental issue of this, as far as the construction, the road work, property values within the area, and as far as that's a big issue, and so I don't know. That's basically I'm dead set against it, and I don't think there's any benefits to it. I mean, you look at 5 or 10 years down the road when we have to reconstruct it because it's going to need repair. Look at Skydome, for instance, Toronto. $1 billion it cost them to make Skydome. I'm going off topic. They ended up selling it for $20 million. So do I agree with it? No. I think we can utilize that money for affordable housing, 5 to 10% affordable housing. Thank you.
Stephen Rowe.
So just to maybe answer one of your environmental questions there, Stephen, LRT is electric, so we won't have to worry about that. It actually runs
So trolley buses.
Yeah. But LRT is electric, so we don't have to necessarily worry about that. And as far as dealing with the infrastructure that it's going to be needed, that's actually part of the $1 billion. I actually have built railroads in my life. I'll tell you that the cost of building that, the train, the track, what's that? Anyway, the cost of building an LRT, the train and track and platforms of that is a fraction of the $1 billion. I costed it out. It's going to come to about $200 million to do that. So I doubled that because we all know the government spend way too much money on everything. So then I added in the $100 million that we've already spent on property and salaries. So we're at $500 million. So the other $500 million to me is going to replace the infrastructure that's under the road. So there's your infrastructure money there. Right? It's all infrastructure we were going to have to replace anyway. So we can now take the $500 million that we were going to use there and put it elsewhere.
Thank you. Dan.
Yeah, I think the impact on businesses along the corridor where LRT is going to be built, that is a major concern. We don't want to build an LRT to get people to and from businesses that are no longer going to be there because they've closed because of the LRT. I think the city could look at maybe giving tax breaks during the construction phase of the LRT, because I know it's when a business has the road ripped up in front of it, customers can't get there. I know when they ripped up King William Street, I know that seriously impacted our business. Reardon's Meats, I remember talking to Paul Reardon. He was greatly affected when the street was ripped up. He wasn't selling as many Christmas turkeys and such. So yeah, that does have a great effect. And also, could there possibly even be maybe bridge loans to businesses, small businesses in the area that are impacted? If they could maybe present income statements showing how they were negatively impacted, maybe the city could help give them bridge loans and just until the construction phase is over so that they don't go under. There's some real little gems opening up along King Street right now that hate to see you gone, like the Capitol Bar.
That's time. Ken.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Narendra.
So I think that a phased construction approach that allows access and safe access for pedestrians, again, working with whether it's the Midtown BIA or a collective of other businesses, making sure that we're addressing the real business needs with solutions in terms of pedestrian safe ways to keep those businesses going. But the other thing that we need to look at here is the community benefits agreement. So many of the negative impacts that we can anticipate from a construction phase would actually be supplemented by a community benefits agreement, in the sense that all new development would be allocated to ensure that there's charges that the developers pay that directly feed back into our communities and the neighborhoods. So we could see increased housing. We could see mixed income housing. We will see new development of businesses along the corridor. We will see more green spaces, and we will see thriving neighborhoods because we've done the foresight. The previous council has had the foresight of ensuring that the community benefits agreement is already in place.
Alan.
There are many ways. A lot of these projects have been built throughout North America. We look at currently the Yes LRT group through the Chamber of Commerce has brought certain services to bear for companies or for commercial or retail spaces along the corridor. A digital city is one of them, which helps small businesses to become a bit more presence online and try to market whatever they're selling, not necessarily as a website, but just to be present that people know. There are within the agreement, the construction agreement of the LRT, there are certain components of it, such as blocks. 2 blocks won't be closed for more than 6 months. I know it's horrible, but it's not like if the entire street is going to be closed off. So there are many ways to mitigate this. It could be free parking, having the right signage to make sure that people know things are open. It's all these little details, as mentioned by a few of them, that will help a lot of these businesses.
Thank you. Laura?
Thank you. So as some have mentioned about phased construction, which is part of the agreement, and the community benefits agreement as well, which council has endorsed, they're wonderful. So we know on Concession Street had a very large road reconstruction project a few years ago, and the project managers that the city already has did a really wonderful job at communicating with the small businesses and making sure there was a phased-in approach so that there wasn't a lot of downtime. But that being said, having talked to some of the businesses and churches along the corridor, they don't feel that they've been heard. They don't feel that solutions have been brought forward or compromises have been found. They feel like they've hit a brick wall of no, and that's a big problem, and that's why a lot of them feel they haven't been heard and they're against it. The other issue we have to look at is the new high school, Bernie Custis High. There's going to be kids coming in there from Sir John A. and from the Delta area. How are we going to get them there? We have to make sure we get ahead of that beforehand and have a real solution to ensure that the kids, they're not just being bussed up and down Canada and clogging that up as well.
Milena.
I'm anti-LRT, but I'll tell you why. Stops are going to be 800 meters apart. You can't cross the street only at those stops. Seniors won't be able to get to that. Disabled people will have a hard time getting there. It is not going to be a pretty picture, and a lot of businesses not going to survive. On top of it, Cumberland, Maplewood, and Stinson are going to be a traffic jam, not only during the building, but after that. The LRT, we do not have ridership to do this. And our cost is going to be huge. There is a belief we're going to do under billion. I don't think so. They told us billion will go to Queenston Circle. Now that same billion is going to Eastgate, which is the truth.
Christine.
You know, we need to cut business tax. You know, that's what's going on, is we're causing businesses too much, you know, tax. So I think we need to give businesses a tax break because, you know, we're doing so much, you know, raising the tax and doing that LRT. If you went on a tour for low-income housing, or if you went to people living in apartment buildings, you would see how many people are asking no LRT there because people are losing their houses. And it's a shame that we're wasting money on an LRT. And I want to say to Nan Durnan, I'm sorry what I said about you. You're a good person and I respect you. So I want to let people know that I am sorry. I was just, I get so angry when people, say certain things. So I'm sorry.
Dan.
Yeah, I guess the other part of this question was if the LRT does not proceed, how do we deal with things? Basically, I think concerted efforts to try and create walkable communities would help alleviate the need for much transit, whether LRT is built or not, and especially if it does not get the go-ahead. Just getting more people off the roads by having the amenities, the things you need for your everyday life within close walking distance would help with that. Plus, I mean, if it doesn't go ahead, I mean, yeah, definitely could use more buses is another thing. I mean, I think that just goes without saying. But it's, yeah, walkable communities.
Thank you, Dan. Steve.
Okay, as already stated, I agree with what you stated. And the secondary roads are going to be majorly impacted by this. So to think that this is not going to cause a problem in Ward 3 is totally a disaster. As far as the construction itself, the amount of years it's going to take, and the environmental dust or whatever you want to call from all of this, and the property, your property values are going to plummet. So you people that are living within the area, whatever you want to believe, I don't care. But you're going to be affected by it. So that's my opinion. And those, unfortunately, you're just a small group here.
Narinder.
I just wanted to address an idea that had come forward by one of my fellow candidates here about incentivizing small businesses or providing loans for losses. Our Planning Act doesn't allow for that because it puts us in a very precarious situation as government, and keeping that line between funding our infrastructure and our public resources versus putting money into business pockets. Alternative routing would be a key thing if the LRT doesn't go forward, but also while it does. And I think, Laura, you made a great point that there's a lot of people who feel left out in this process. At the end of the day, if we had done a more thorough consultative process, we might have been able to do a wraparound approach to all the residents who are being displaced as some of the properties are being acquired for the LRT. And I think it would have been phenomenal to have us actually do a door-to-door process where we're supporting residents who are going to be displaced into other affordable tenancy as well. Other cities have done a great job of this, and I would love to actually see us consider that before we move into the next phase.
Laura.
Thanks, Dunder. And the process has unfolded, as you all know. I've worked at City Hall for 10 years, so I've been talking about LRT for a decade, literally, and working people who are for it, against it. But the reality is that we can't make our major arterial streets any wider. There is no more room left. We cannot build them out. As our population grows, there are going to be more cars. If we don't build it, we don't do it before our population, then we'll really have traffic jams. They've done the traffic modeling with the current plan, and it shows that it's not going to be a traffic jam on those streets, which is a good thing. And also, the provincial deal, our current provincial deal, I'm going to keep saying this until I'm blue in the face, doesn't allow us to reallocate that money. The provincial government is not going to revisit that until after this election when they see who wins. They would really dearly love to get that money back because they're in a budget deficit. Also, Main and Bay Street is a key example. It was a surface parking lot. LRT was approved and announced. They built a hotel. It used to bring in $55,000 worth of taxes, property taxes, a year. They now bring in $2.2 million. So the argument there that the land there doesn't work that way.
Time. Thank you. Milena.
There is actually 8 creeks between downtown and Red Hill. Barton used to have 8 bridges at one time. So that's why we have on some streets sinkholes. Once they start building this, we really don't know what the costs will be. And I have talked to different people canvassing. They say they get every year a sinkhole on their street. So this is going to be a huge problem for us. And cost-wise, we actually don't know what's coming because we're not tying the rest of the community. That's why I think bus transit across the whole city is a better solution.
That's fully
Ellen.
Right?
That was hard to swallow. So a lot of the things that we've discussed this evening or around the LRT, we've heard over and over from the no LRT And, you know, the opposite side is a trolley bus. We're going to put a trolley bus to solve these problems of 250,000 people coming in the next 25 years. There's so much misinformation, hence why 4 years ago, my first time to speak of LRT at council, I spoke for us to communicate, to connect, whether it was residents, businesses, and throughout the city. This project is misunderstood. It's a project that will bring us forward and bring us to a sustainable, mid-sized city like no other in this region.
Christine.
You know, I know people ask about the roads, you know, like they're always bumpy. So here's a question for, I can't say your name.
Me?
Yeah. Alan. Okay. So you say you're for the LRT, and I say, what happens if the money doesn't come through? For Bill, like for Doug Ford, he says, we're not going to get it. The money. I always look at, if we don't get the money for the light rail service, I call it the light rail service, what are we going to do? Are we going to put more buses on the road? Or are we going to just sit and say, okay, the LRT, where's the money coming from?
Alain,
I can
would you like to
respond to
respond?
that.
Yes.
Well, we currently have an agreement for it, so that's where the money is going to come from. I'm not sure where the money is going to come from for the buses that you talk about, or the alternatives that we know nothing of. There is no plan, there is nothing. We're looking at years of reevaluation, years of environmental assessment, years of trying to find funding. There is currently the money for this project. We need to get it going. And we will get it going now. Thank you.
Milena.
Actually, we can use the environmental assessment towards the bus system as well. On top of it, all the trees will be removed, and because the street is narrow, we will not get any trees. We will have a wind tunnel down the King Street. And you will have a lot of fatalities because people will not walk 400 meters to get to the other side of the street. Anybody who thinks that's going to happen is kidding themselves.
Laura.
I feel like I'm back at work. Sorry. So there, again, as Lynn said, there's so much misinformation. Regardless, we need the money to stay here in Hamilton because I don't know about you, but I'd rather have provincial money from all of Ontario going to benefit Hamilton instead of Ottawa or London or Mississauga. Let's have it here, first and foremost. Thank you. So trees, there is an agreement. They are going to replant all of them and then some, first of all. And the rest of it, it has been 12 years since we started this process. It is exhaustive. It's not quite Pan Am Stadium exhaustive, I'll tell you that much, because that was a really short summer with a lot of things that changed all the time. But this has been a long marathon of a project. We've gone through environmental assessment reports. After updated environmental assessment, council's voted on it, I think we're at 69 times now since 2006, and 4 mayors. I made a spreadsheet once, it was color-coded, it was beautiful. But you know, the end point is that it's been voted on. This is the current project that we're allowed to spend the money on.
Laura.
Thank you.
Narinder.
You know, it's really unfortunate that this municipal election is turning into a referendum about the LRT. Like said, the decision's been made, and what we actually need right now is the political courage to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime investment from our province and invest in the future, so that the future generations know that this is a city that is full of opportunities for them, that we're keeping in mind future generations as we're creating investments that actually turn into jobs, that turn into green space, that turn into trees being replanted, that turn into affordable housing, that turn into businesses opening, and create an artery of life and vitality in this city that has seen too many hard times and a legacy of neglect. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and we need to maintain our political courage and keep our decision firm and take advantage of this opportunity.
Milena.
Ford had said that we can use money for whatever they want. If he might, just a minute. he might pull the money anyway. We don't know.
He could pull the money anyways.
See, you can pull money anyway. So basically, as far as he's concerned, we can amend the agreement. So for us to say it's a signed deal, we don't. It's a different government in Ontario.
Steve.
Oh, she did a great job.
So you don't have anything else to add? All right. So Laura, and then that'll wrap up
I heard the
this
gentleman
section.
asking why we don't have a referendum on it, because referendums and plebiscites in Ontario are only legally binding if more than 50% of voters turn out and vote on it. And here in Hamilton, we're at about 40% mayorally. Here in Ward 3 in 2014, 29.2 municipal turnout. So even if we had a referendum, it wouldn't be legally binding. We've had 4 elections since this process started, and every single time, a pro-LRT mayor was elected.
Mic drop.
Thank you, everyone. We've got time, so I'm just going to let you each, and we're going to go in alphabetical order this time. You'll each get a minute just to make any final remarks that you would like to make before we wrap up the conversation tonight. So we'll start at Milena, please. 1 minute.
Well, I've talked to other businesses. That I'm also located on King Street. And if LRT is going in, I will not survive. I have to move. I can't get deliveries. And we talked to people from Metrolinx, and they have no idea how the Prulator, all these people. I get deliveries every single day, and I have to have access. It's not if and but. It has to be done. And the problem is that none of this has been really, really addressed with businesses. Now, I just want to say one more. Originally, when they said LRT was coming, I was for it. Then I did my research. And it doesn't, the numbers don't support it. Thank you.
Ellen.
I have a much more positive vision of what we can do. Hamilton is an ambitious city. We are reliving something strong and powerful. I see so many people with a lot of aspirations, not just needs, but aspirations and desires. We can move this forward if we put our best forward and actually stop bickering about the details of everything, saying that one decision and then not implementing it. We've talked about master plans and things like that. We really need to move forward. What I'd like to do is at least start with LRT and then work our way to an even better and bigger city, inclusive and diverse for everyone.
Thank you. Laura.
So one of the reasons I decided to run wasn't, as a recent op-ed in The Spectator said, trading in all my years of experience at City Hall. Those years of experience have shown me that a lot of times things come across a councillor's desk, an innovative idea, a new way of doing something that doesn't cost a whole lot of money, and they basically toss it behind them and go, why would we do that? Why? They don't stick their political necks out, as it's been mentioned. There's no proactiveness. And I will stand on my track record for the last 10 years of doing everything I can to help round pegs fit into square holes, to help staff see that we don't have to keep doing things the way we've been doing them, because that's the way we've done them for 20 years, and to bring everything together and to actually help people and to continue to prosper and grow our ward.
Thank you, Laura. Steve.
All I got to say, it's unfortunate we got such a small group here. And you know where I stand on LRT, and I'll pass it on.
I have my own mic, thanks.
Narinder.
Thank you. So I've been campaigning over the last 3 months around 3 values: respect, engage, and empower. I think that we need to be governing based in values as well, making sure that we're respecting our residents, we're engaging them, and we're empowering the ideas that our neighbors in Ward 3 have already come up with. I also am absolutely wholeheartedly committed to communicating effectively with residents so we can all know what to expect, and most importantly, know how to integrate and participate in the process. I am absolutely dedicated to municipal level change. I am not interested in any other level of government, and I am not interested in any other kind of political position up. For me, this city matters. It is my home. It is where my child was born, and I want to create every opportunity possible in Ward 3 and in this city so that she thrives and all of our children thrive, and that we design a city that is built for future generations. It's time. We're ready. Let's bring the political courage and the ideas to the table and make sure we fund what needs to be funded and implement the strategies already in play.
Thank you, Narinder. Stephen.
One thing I agree with that was said tonight was by Narinder. It's unfortunate this has turned into a referendum on LRT. There are so many more things that are involved in running a city, and we need to actually look at electing a councillor that has a track record of being a balanced attitude and looking at how different things can be done in different ways. I'd like to follow Laura's advice, and I'll stand on my track record too of 20 years of working in the community, trying to make things better, and coming up with the best ideas while talking to and working with my fellow residents. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed tonight, and I'm going to pass it on.
Thank you, Steve. Dan.
Yes, one of my main reasons for running is I've been involved in the community before, much more when I had more time before I had kids. So my kids are getting a little bit older. I'd like to get more involved in the community. Definitely would love to put my skills to use. I've got an MBA in finance. I've worked as an engineer before. I definitely know project management. I know financial planning, how to budget projects, make sure we're getting the best value for our dollars. Largely what I'm offering is professional management at City Hall. I don't think we have anybody with my kind of business education on council right now. I think it would be a welcome addition to council. I mean, there's a lot of people who are very active in the community, but I guess how I'm differentiating myself is just professional experience on this. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Christine.
I just want to say to all of you, thank you for coming on out for, this night. I want to say to all my candidates, thank you very much. I am looking in a new light for the LRT. If we want it, let's do it. Let's put the LRT on. Let's do it. I'm on board for that.
We did our job.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to ask everybody here tonight to join me in thanking the candidates, because one thing that I would say it's not easy for all just to sit up there and do what all of you do, and it's a really important part of keeping democracy vibrant and alive in our community. So thank you to all of you for that. It's been an enjoyable evening, and I hope everyone here has learned a lot about their candidates, and you're reflecting carefully, and you're all going to get out and vote on October 27th. Thanks very much. Did you want to?
Just lastly, before everyone goes, I want to remind everyone who has friends and family that couldn't be here tonight that we will be rebroadcasting tonight's event as recorded by Joey Coleman. Thank you very much. And that video will be shared with the approximately 10,000 people that exist on all of the community website pages. So it's not just the audience here that will be seeing your performance tonight. I want to thank everyone as one of the organizers for coming, both attendees as well as all of our candidates for taking the time to be grilled by us. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much, and everybody have a lovely evening.
One more thing quickly. Folks, just quickly as well, so you're aware, there is a mayoralty debate tomorrow night. It's at the Afro-Caribbean Association, right?